Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Now this is Thursday, however this is not going to be a throwback Thursday. Rather, I'm going to be trying to walk you guys through the road so far for the KARDS World Championship, and what's coming next, and where you can watch it. So, you should, if you follow my channel, which you should do, subscribe if you're not already, you will have seen my last video was my games in the top 128. So all of my games that I played in the group stage. Now, this is actually the second stage of the KARDS World Championship. The first stage already happened about a month ago. There was a series of open qualifiers inside the KARDS client. You probably saw it. Anybody who reached Field Marshal was allowed to join and play, and they took the top 115 or so players from those events, and they qualified for the group stage. Now, the reason it's like 115, whereas this is the top 128, is there was a handful of pre-qualified players. They had the 7 pre-qualified players from the previous year, which was the top 4. However, last year there was 3 players in the top 4 who could not make it, so they brought 3 additional players, which is why it's actually 7 players who qualified for being top 4 last year, myself included, as well as every player who has won a tournament between January 2022 and October. So basically anyone who's won a tournament this year and the top 4 from the KARDS World Championship last year all pre-qualified to the round of 128, and then everyone else played the series of qualifiers in the client to get here. Now, we were all drawn into 16 groups, and it's supposed to be 16 groups of 8. However, inevitably when you have this many players, some people drop, some people can't make the dates, some people just choose not to, and inevitably even the people who agree to come some will sleep in, some will have things come up last minute, some will forget to submit decks, etc, etc, etc. So inevitably it's not actually 16 groups of 8, it's more like 16 groups of like 5 to 6. But yeah, we were all drawn into groups. It's round robin, you play everybody in the group, and the top 2 players from each group qualify to the top 32, which is going to be a double elimination bracket. We will get into that later. Now, before going through how the group stage went, because the group stage has already finished, that was last weekend. The top 32 is this upcoming weekend. The majority of it will be played off-stream on Saturday. However, where you can watch, it will be on the KARDS main Twitch channel. On Sunday, they will be streaming the top 6, which is the 2 matches on the winner's side of the bracket, where the winner goes to Iceland. The winner advances to the top 4, and then the loser will drop down and play the players on the loser side of the bracket. So it will be 4 matches. In all 4 matches, winner goes to the top 4, loser does not. Well, in the first 2 matches, it will be loser gets a second try. But we will get into that in a bit, because first I wanted to go over these really awesome sort of statistics gathered from the submitted deck lists for the group stage by TB. These are not my own. These are by TB, so thank him for making these. So this is the number of main nations from the decks brought, which is 79 Britain, which is 85% of players. So players brought 3 decks each, and 85% of them brought a Britain deck, which is just insane. 67 brought a German deck, 58% brought a Soviet deck, 46% brought a US deck, and 41% brought a Japan deck. Now, that's pretty sad if you're the KARDS balance team. Hopefully these nerfs will change something. I expect the US's popularity to go up with the rise of US midrange. And like overall, each deck sort of has like each nation is sort of in a good spot right now, other than Japan, because Britain obviously has Brit Air, and hopefully that will be taken a peg or 2 down. Germany has Germany-Italy control, also has Heinz, which isn't bad. Soviets have self-damage, also has some Soviet control decks, which aren't terrible. US has US midrange, which is doing pretty well. And Japan has exclusively J-Aggro, and it's alright. Now, if we look over at the ally nations, we'll see something very interesting. Britain is sitting down there with 9 allies. So out of the probably something like, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. It was 100 players, but not all of them submitted decks. So of the maybe 270 decks submitted, 3 had Poland ally, 5 had Soviet ally, and 9 had British ally. Wow. You had 270 decks, and of your 8 allied nations, possible allied nations, you had 9, 5, and 3. And 17 US, 18 France, 21 Japan are also all very, very low. Just 6% of people bringing them. Oh, it's not 6% of people bringing them, sorry. 6% of decks having them, I should say. And then you'd have a bit of a rise to Germany, where 28% of decks are German ally. And these are the J-Agros, these are the US Germans. There's probably a handful of like discard allied control decks, like my Soviet German control deck. I didn't see, but I'm sure there's some amount of like Britain German handlock maybe. There's always some interesting decks you can do with there. And then at the very top, with 124 decks, are Italy ally. That's 44% of decks. That is over a third of decks. That is a problem. Just balance-wise, that is a problem. If you have 8 allied nations and one of them is being brought in 44% of decks, that is insane, and that is a bit of an issue. And this is the largest sample size we are going to get of competitive cards. Because, like, the Opens, you don't submit a deck list for the Opens until you're in top 16. The OCCs is only 8 people. Once we get to the top 6, the top 4, it's obviously 6 or 4 people. This is like 90 people, and 44% of decks. It's actually 44.92, so it's basically 45% of decks have Italy ally. But moving right along, we can see the actual deck-by-deck breakdown, at least for the decks that had multiple copies brought. So you have Brit Air, 70, so most players, the vast majority of players, brought Britain Air. And these stats on the left is the percentage of total decks that this deck represents. Now, the deck cannot represent more than 1/3. Keep that in mind. And then the second number on the far right is the percentage of players who brought this deck. So, after Brit Air, you have German-Italy control at 41, and then you have J-Agro and US German both at 32. Now, you can see already these are sort of like the typical lineup so far, if you just look at the numbers, is Britain-Italy control, Britain-Italy Air, German-Italy control, and then either J-Agro or US Frontline. The next deck, unsurprisingly, is Self-Damage. So, yeah, you can see people are sort of feeling out. They're like, I want Brit Air, and then what else am I going to do? You're going to have people with smaller collections, or people just more comfortable on aggro decks doing Brit Air, J-Agro Frontline, or Brit Air, J-Agro Self-Damage, but then you're going to have people who are more comfortable with control and have larger collections who are going to be doing Brit Air, German control, and maybe even Soviet German control, which is the next deck after Self-Damage, which I'm really happy about. I'm unexpected, and sort of proud about that, because Soviet German control was a deck that I literally just made out of the blue like a couple days before OCC brought it, worked really well, and a week later 13 people, well, one of them is myself, so a week later 12 people have copied me, and yeah, that's quite flattering. I'm not gonna lie. Now, I want to just bring your attention back up to this 32 Japan-German J-Agro. There was 38 J-Agro decks brought. 32 of them are Japan-German aggro. So yeah, when people say Japan has one deck, this is what they mean. Now, really after self-damage, things start getting far and few between. You have 9 German-US Hinds, 7 Soviet France Controls, which is sort of a deck that came out of the blue for me. Like, I'd seen it once or twice on ladder, but I had not seen it really at a high level before. But, 7 people bought it, which is a lot considering it's a control deck. Usually control decks are the ones that don't become super popular. 5 Soviet Italy Controls, only 3 Britain-France Mobilizes, which is kind of surprising to me because it's a very popular deck on ladder, but I guess everyone given the choice between Britain-Italy Air and Britain-France Mobilized went with Britain-Italy Air. Then you have German-France Burn, which is a really fun deck. So there's probably a lot of people with like lower collections who are just like, well, this deck can just win games against anything. 2 Britain-Poland Legions, 2 Soviet Britain Controls, 2 German Britain combined arms decks. Only 2 is actually very surprising to me because again, this is a deck I see a lot on ladder. 2 Soviet US Arties, 2 Soviet US Ramps, 2 US Italy Ramps, 2 US Soviet Ramps, and 2 US France unitless decks. Wow. So those are all the decks from and then there's 24 decks which are just too random to explain or brought by one player, so it's not really worth listing. So yeah, those are your decks from the top 128. And to follow this up, we have the stats of the decks in top 32. So we get to compare and contrast. I'll go through this one a lot faster. But we get to compare and contrast how these decks actually perform, how these nations actually perform. So starting with the main nations. So of the top 32 players, 31 have Britain Air. Sorry, not Britain Air. 31 have Britain Ally. Now, if we just go back to the previous tab, and of course scroll over, we'll see 85% of players brought Britain, and of the players who qualified, only 1 did not have Britain. So, yeah, Britain's good. Then we have 20 German decks, 20 Soviet decks, 17 US decks, and only 8 Japan decks. So only 25% of top 8 brought Japan in the previous round. And again, if you go back, 41% of players brought Japan. However, in top 32, only 25% of players have Japan, which means Japan did not perform well. Part of this might be that Japan is a lot of people's first decks, so there's going to be a lot of players who got into the tournament through the qualifier system, playing exclusively Jagro, and now they have to bring 3 decks, so they bring Jagro and 2 decks they're not comfortable on and don't have like full lists for. That's a good possibility for why Jagro is so underrepresented at the top, but it's still a very astonishing statistic. Now, if we look over at the allies, unsurprisingly, Italy is at 43 Italy ally decks in the top 32, which is, again, over a third, 44%. Actually, if you check, this is 44.92, this is 44.79. So, essentially just the exact same percentage of Italy control decks, or Italy decks brought, qualified. So it seems like people were not wrong for bringing that much Italy ally. Then you have German ally next at 27%. Then you have Japan ally, and I haven't actually taken a look at what the decks are yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume that the 9 Japan allies are 9 Soviet Japan self-damages. Then only 7 US allies, 3 France allies, 3 Britain allies, and here's a shocker, 3 Poland allies, and 2 Soviet allies. Now, if we just go back really quick, we'll see 3 Poland allies sitting at the bottom of the list for top 128. All 3 people who brought Poland ally qualified. Coincidence? I don't know. You tell me. Then let's go over and look at the decks. This list is significantly shorter, you will notice. So of the top 32, 28 brought Britain, Italy, Air. So yeah. Like, the deck is just insane. So there's 2 additional numbers here. This is the qualifying percentage. So the percentage of all players who brought the deck who qualified. So 40% of Britain Air players qualified. Now on its own, this could be a little misleading, just because it doesn't really factor in the number of players who brought the deck. So more players brought Britain, Italy, Air than could qualify. If I remember correctly, I think it's something around 70 Britain, Italy, Air decks. Now, you can't have all 70 of them qualify. So the second number is the qualification percentage over average, which gives you a better idea of how well the deck performed. But again, both of these numbers aren't... I mean, yeah, in my opinion, both of these numbers aren't, like, super important, per se. At least with Britain Air, just because it was so popular. So 28 Britain, Italy Airs, 14 German, Italy Controls. You can see that's already 42 of the 43 Italy allies. There's probably like a Soviet Italy in there somewhere. Then you have 13 US German front lines. And if you go back and look at the number of US German front lines, 32 people bought US German front line. 43 brought US main. Here, 17 US mains qualified. Of them, 13 are US German frontline. So US German frontline seemed pretty good. Not gonna lie, it was brought much more than I was expecting. It was a deck that I had not seen a lot of on ladder, but a lot of people brought it, and it performed pretty well. This is another one of these standout decks from the tournament. Then you have 9 Soviet Japan self-damage, which is the 9 Japan ally decks, which actually has the highest, second highest qualification over average rate, which means, yeah, that's pretty impressive. 42% of people who brought Soviet self-damage qualified, which is very interesting. Then you have Jagro. 7 players in top 32 brought Jagro, but of all players who brought Jagro, 21% qualified, which is 12% under average. Actually, like 13% under average. This is actually the worst performing deck statistically in the top 128. Now you have Soviet German Control, which performed slightly above average. You have German US Heinz, which performed way above average. And then you have Soviet France Control, which again performed way over average, which is very interesting. However, those decks have significantly smaller sample sizes, so take that with a grain of salt. And then you have 13 decks in the top 32, which were only brought by 1 player. And they underperformed compared to other decks only brought by 1 player, which, I mean, I don't really know what that means. But anyways, that is enough looking at statistics. Let's get into some of these groups before I show you the top 32 bracket. Let's see if I remember how to navigate start.gg. So, here we go. Let's take a quick look through the pools. So, starting with Pool 1, and these pools were drawn completely randomly. There was a bit of a mix-up at first where the pools they first announced then got changed. And the reason for this, I know there was a lot of confusion about this, but my understanding, the reason for this is they drew the names out of the pools, and then other people, like off-screen, off the stream, like a production team, wrote down the names into the groups, and those were the first things published. However, people brought it to their attention that these lists were slightly wrong. They like forgot a name, or they misplaced a name, or they skipped a group, or whatever. But some of the names were wrong based on how they drew them from the hat. So they went back and fixed everything so that these groups were based on how they drew them from the hat. Just to be fair, because it would really suck if like you saw yourself get drawn into group 3 and then they made a mistake, so they put you in group 4, and that would suck. Now, obviously, it's possible that they accidentally put you into group 4 and you wanted to be in group 4 rather than 3, and then they put you back in 3, and you're kind of annoyed about that. But at least they could just say like, yeah, it's how they drew it. It's a random draw. It sucks. So yeah. It's unfortunate, but I don't really blame them for doing it. Now, if we take a look at Group 1, you have the qualifying players of Huey, who, if you don't recognize Huey, he is the second highest, the player with the second highest number of wins, OCC wins, ever, by a very large margin. I think Birdo has 2. I think Birdo is 3rd for most OCC wins. Yeah, I think Birdo and Noah are tied at 3rd for 2 OCC wins each, and then Huey has 5, and then I think I have 6 or 7. So, yeah, Huey is a beast at this game, but he's never performed well outside of OCC. I don't think he's ever made money from an Open. Last year he got knocked out in group stages, if I remember correctly. So, it's very interesting to see him making it into the top 32 with only one loss to set, and you'll see a lot of WLs across these. This is because the player dropped, so it just gives free wins to everybody. So as you can see, this is supposed to be originally supposed to be an 8-person group, but some people didn't want to come, so it went down to a 6-person group, and then of those 6 people, 2 dropped. So yeah, it essentially becomes a 4-person group. And you'll see some 4-person groups, you'll see some like 7-person groups, so it's wide range of experiences in the group stage. Now, the second player, Iggy Ouch, I have no idea how you pronounce that. I am not familiar with him at all, so that'll be interesting to see. Now, if we go into Group 2, you have Petriacre taking the group, which is very interesting. And now, a lot of people might not recognize Petriacre. He's been around in this game for a very long time. He played at a tournament level a very long time ago, and has not really been around this year. However, the fact that he's came back, qualified through the Open qualifiers, and then won his group, it should tell you something about this guy. Now, coming in second is Cappuccino, and Cappuccino is another one of these very, very successful players. I believe Cappuccino has... Actually, they might have 2 OCC wins now. They definitely won a very recent OCC. They won it off the back of winning my hosted King's Cup tournament. So 2 back-to-back tournament wins in very competitive settings, and qualifying through this group. Now, these are the players who unfortunately are not making it out of group stage. You might recognize some of them from Ladder, you might recognize some of them from the Discord. I will point out any very notable upsets along the way. Now, in Group 3, you have Pilsudski, probably butchering that, Pilsudski, taking the group, and you might remember Pilsudski's name from OCC fame not that long ago, where he broke into his first ever OCC and ended up second in the August OCC. And I think he's definitely played in top 38, qualifying matches in OCC before. I think he's made 1 more top 8. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, new and up-and-coming player who just kind of demolishes group 2-0, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-0. Now you have Citrus being the second player to qualify from this group. I I've seen them on ladder before, but I'm not that familiar. And then if you scroll down at the 4 players knocked out of this group, the first player, it's a Chinese name, I don't remember the translation. However, this was one of the top 4 players from last year. This is actually the player that knocked me out of top 6 last year. And they placed 3rd, which means they are out of the tournament. Now, take with a grain of salt that they were top 4 last year, because they had not shown up in any previous tournament, they did not show up in any following tournament, and based on the games that they played that I saw, I didn't think they were an especially strong player. And that's something that's going to happen in an event like this, is you can easily get players who are sort of out of their depth, quote-unquote. Like, if you get a couple of easier opponents followed by a couple of, like, lucky games, it's really easy to get far into into this tournament in particular, without necessarily being the strongest player ever. But still getting 3rd in this group, and placing below them is List, who is a tournament player of past, Tree-Pipit, tournament player. List and Tree-Pipit, you will probably see both of them grinding into top 38 each month. And then at the bottom, Anarko, another Chinese player who frequently is in the top 38 of ladder. So this was a bit of a stacked group. Interesting to see Pilsudski and Citrus, who I'm not familiar with at all, taking it out. Now we get into Group 4, which is the Darkness group. And you have Johnny99 topping the group, with Darkness coming in 2nd. Darkness actually had to beat Johnny99 to even qualify in the last game. That was quite the dramatic moment. Darkness streamed his first 3 games and went 2-1 with a bye, and was put into a position where on the second day of playing, on the Sunday, he had to play 1 game, well, 1 set against Johnny99, and if he won, he qualified. If he lost, he was out. Imagine having to go to bed knowing that tomorrow you have to play that game. But, of course, he won, so he qualifies in Group 2, and being knocked out of the group, a bunch of people I'm not that familiar with. Diablo Joker I've recognized. I think maybe he qualified top 16 in an open once. Then we get on to Group 5, which is my group. Now, I qualify in seed number 2nd. I lost 0-2 to Hair Pun Pun, which messed up my qualifiers quite a bit. Like my tiebreakers, I mean. And taking the group is Corn Guy, who absolutely mopped the floor with everybody other than me. Very impressive from him. He earned that top of the group. And down here you have some players I'm not that familiar with. Hair Pun Pun actually made top 32 last year and went to Game 5 against CCMS. I think I've recognized him. I think somebody said that he was in the Nations Cup. I think I might have seen him from an Open. So yeah, it's really interesting to see these. With Worlds, you see a lot of players who, like, show up here and there in tournaments, showing up. Because it's a big tournament, it's wider, they have more of a chance to qualify, and then from that they have more of a chance to get far. Group 6 was another very interesting group. You have Killswitch topping the group with probably the single most dominant performance in this entire group stage. 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-1. Then you have CU Collector qualifying on tiebreakers over Sergeant Stupidity. And CU Collector is, again, one of these players who, he was top 4 in 2020. That was the first tournament that they ever played in, as far as I'm aware. They ended up 4th. However, they brought the same decks as CCMS. Like, it was very clear that CU Collector and CCMS, they seemed to be friends. They seemed to be working together. And then, following that tournament, CCMS played in a couple tournaments following Worlds, since he was the 2020 World Championship. Or the World Champion, sorry. CU Collector did not. However, in 2021, he came back, brought the exact same decks as CCMS again, and qualified for top 4 again. And this year, and then, like, after that, he couldn't make it, so they brought in other players, myself included, to fill in the top 4. This year, what's he doing? Bringing the exact same decks as CCMS. And look at this. He's qualifying out of his group stage again. So I don't know a lot about this player, but the results speak for themselves. I mean, this guy just seems to be a beast on paper. Now, from his 2020 and 2021 games on stream, I think there's definitely ways he could have improved. He could improve his game. However, it's been a year. I don't know if in that time he has not been playing at all. I don't know if in that time he's been like smashing ladder and or farming draft or something. So yeah, that guy is certainly a scary opponent. Now down here you also have Red Sun, unfortunately dropping out 4th. If I recall correctly, I think Red Sun went 3-0 on day 1 and then 0-3 on day 2. I could be wrong about that, but I remember looking at this group after day 1 and thinking, oh my goodness, Red Sun has just destroyed everybody. Red Sun's going to qualify. I'm kind of glad I didn't get in his group. And unfortunately, that streak ended, and he is in 4th and knocked out of the World Championship. Moving on to Group 7, you have Kalen BZ qualifying out of the group. Now, again, this is a player you might not recognize. If you play ladder at a high level, you will recognize this guy. He's been in tournaments before. He plays at the high level a lot. Like, he plays on ladder at a high level. He is a very good player. So, not that surprising that he wins his group. Rayson is the number 2 player. I am not familiar with this guy at all. And then down in 4th, you have Bison, who is, again, a top 4 finalist from last year. Now, he has not had I think he's played in a couple of OCC qualifiers. I don't think he's made any top 8s. I don't think he's made any top 16s this year. But he has been around. He has been playing the game. But unfortunately for him, his chance at a run back for the World Championship is knocked out in group stages. Now we go on to Pool 8, where you have Zanyun winning the pool, Kolbasnik running it up. And Zanyun, I feel like I've definitely seen this player on ladder. I don't remember if I've ever seen this player in a tournament before. I could be wrong. I could have definitely seen them playing in opens. I don't know if they've ever been they definitely have not ever been top 8. I don't think they've been top 16 in an open. But I think they've been playing around tournaments. So it's interesting, again, to see a player kind of just break out in the tournament scene. And if you look, he went 5-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-1, 2-0. And Kolbasnik, of course, hasn't been around in tournaments recently, in like the last few months, but at the beginning of the year, like the first like 5 or 6 months of the year, he was in basically every tournament. Now you have Doggy at the bottom, member of Team Ammo, not as active as the other members, and unfortunately knocked out in 5th. Also, in number 4, I believe this is Jinlun. I'm not 100% certain, but at the very least, this is a Chinese player who has competed in tournaments before, and they are unfortunately knocked out. Now, we're halfway through group stages. In pool number 9, which a lot of people called the Pool of Death, you have Vinny winning it out, with Dion coming in 2nd. And this is... Vinny got off to a rough start, because I remember looking at this group, and I saw Vinny down... He lost his first game 0-2, and he was down 1-0 in game 2. And I remember thinking, oh no. Oh no. Poor Vinny. But Vinny just clutched it out, came back, won that game 2-1, and then won his next 3 games and qualified first in the group. So Vinny really proving himself in this group of death. Dion, also very interestingly, qualifying. Now, Dion had a slightly easier path because Ari Big Ben dropped, giving Dion a free DQ win, whereas Vinny had to beat Ari Big Ben. And, yeah, you'll recognize that name. Ari Big Ben was also in this group. And at 5th, you have S Chicken, who you probably don't recognize. However, this person made top... I think they made top 12, maybe even top 8 in the World Championship last year. They lost to CCMS. So they could not continue their run this year. I believe I recognize this Chinese name, but I'm not 100% certain. Maybe this is Jinlun. Apologies to Jinlun out there. I recognize most of the top-level Chinese players by their characters. like their names. Jinlun's the one where it's like, I swear there's like 3 or 4 that just, to me, look really similar. Apologies. And Emil, bless his heart. If you've ever been in the Discord, you've spoken to Emil, he's awesome. Unfortunately, getting knocked out at 3rd. Now we move on to Group 10, where you have Leo just demolishing his group. Now, Leo is a player who, I believe he showed up in his first ever OCC, and just completely demolished everybody. He won the tournament. I think he beat Tang Tang like 3-1 or something in the finals. Very impressive run by him. And since then, I think he played in one other tournament, and then after that, he's just sort of dropped off a bit. He's been here and there on ladder, but never making it through qualifiers. And just shows up and drops this massive statement of, yeah, I'm just going to go 5-0 in a group with Head, Drogear, Captain A. And yeah, Drogear and Captain A are both in this, 2 long-time playing players who are sort of just like ladder beasts. They don't necessarily put the time in to play in tournaments throughout the year. However, both of these players at the end of the year, you can expect them around. And Captain A has been in a OCC before. And Head coming in 2nd in the group. Head is a more recent player as opposed to the 2 old guards at the bottom. And yeah, Head is just an amazing player. He's been in a couple OCCs, OCC qualifiers. And this group to me is very interesting because it shows really the importance of playing throughout the year. Now, there's definitely exceptions. We've already seen CU Collector, who just sort of comes in and to collect his World Championship check. But I think this really shows the importance of playing throughout the year, knowing the meta, knowing the players, knowing not just, oh, these are the best 3 decks to bring, the best 4 decks to bring, but knowing the pocket picks, knowing what players are going to bring something slightly off meta and how to counter that, how to play against like these slightly off meta decks. It really is important to, if you want your best chances at qualifying at the World Championship at the end of the year, to be playing throughout the year. Not that Drogear and Captain A were not playing throughout the year, but I mean playing at like a very high level, getting into these tournaments, competing in these tournaments. Now let's go on to Pool 11, where we have Noen taking his group, going 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-1, 2-0, and a free win for a total record of 10-1, which is insane. Then you have Krieger coming in 2nd. I'm not very familiar with this player. Wild Eyes, another one of my teammates, unfortunately dropping in 5th. And you have Gatto. Again, I heard Gatto. He's a player. I've seen him in tournaments before. He's pretty good. Seen him on ladder before. Unfortunately, he was incredibly sick for this tournament. And basically just dropped after the first day. Which is unfortunate timing on that. But yeah, not that surprising that Noen wins his group. Noen's an incredibly strong player. Then we get to Group 12, where we see CCMS also coming back and winning his group, going 5-0. Basically the exact same lineup as CU Collector. Yeah, CCMS is just like an absolute enigma of a player. Because when I see his plays don't strike me as like the best in the world, like above, like on a different level. He strikes me as a good player. Like if he played this game a lot, I think he could be like an OCC regular. I don't even know if I would put him up to the level of like Tang Tang, Noen, myself. Like, I don't know. He would probably improve his play if he played as much as we did. So yeah, I think he could definitely get to that level. I'm not trying to like gatekeep him, but yeah, just on terms of his play alone, he doesn't strike me as like a just absolutely astonishing, mind-blowing player. He just strikes me as a good player. However, it's his decks. His decks is where he comes in and brings completely random stuff you've like never seen before or thought was bad. You have seen before, but you just thought it was bad, and he will just bring it in and make it work against like people bringing like the meta of the meta, like the most meta lineup ever, and he'll just bring random crap and absolutely destroy you. And he's done it in 2020, he's done it in 2021, and apparently he's doing it now in 2022. So it goes to show this isn't just a coincidence. This guy has got to be some expert deck builder. Like, you don't do this so many times and not be, like, just a genius deck creator if you bring completely new custom decks every time. So yeah, we are truly blessed by CCMS. However, I think I really don't want to see him make top 4 again. I don't want to see CU Collector make top 4 again. Just because I think it's like there's so many players who deserve a shot at top 4. So many players who have been putting in the grind throughout the year. I just don't like the idea that there's these 2 guys who just show up and collect their check every 12 months, just saying screw the meta. But I mean, if they do it again, they've deserved it. Like, you can't say that you qualify top 4 3 consecutive years out of luck. Well, out of exclusively luck. So yeah, we'll have to see. We'll get into top 32 in a bit. Now you have Vadim qualifying in Group 2, which means Kumashin is out, Thanatron is out, Baron von Glauer is out, and this Chinese player, who I do not know their name, but I've seen them in top 38 a lot, is also knocked out. This was another group of some recognizable names, and Vadim is probably the name I know the least, but he qualified number 2, and CCMS just shows up after, like, 10 months of not playing the game, or at least not playing the game at a competitive tournament level, and wipes the floor with everybody. Now you have Group 13, where you have 8964. I have no idea who this person is, but they won the group. Chisty winning, coming in second. Now Chisty is a player who's sort of come up in the last, like, maybe 4 or 5 months. Yeah, at first I saw him in Twitch chat, like, criticizing people's plays during OCC. And if you're gonna do that, you best back up your word, and he did, because the next month he qualified to OCC. So yeah, he's in qualifiers, he's in top 38s, he's in, I believe he's definitely made top 8, at some point. And below that, you have Nyarlathotep. He's performed definitely more in opens than OCCs. But yeah, he's definitely played in qualifiers for OCC. He's definitely made top 16s. Nyarlathotep, very good player. And if you scroll down, there's a couple other recognizable names in here, like Casti. But yeah, Chisty qualifying, I'm not that surprised about that, given the group. But you have 8964 actually winning the group over the likes of Nyarlathotep. And he actually beat Nyarlathotep 0-2 to do that. So, yeah, we'll see more from this player. Hopefully they don't go too far, because, I mean, my goodness, 8964 is not a particularly memorable or inspiring name. Now we get on to Pool 14. Now this pool was spicy. So it started off as a 6-person pool, and immediately you had 2 people drop. So it turned into a 4-person pool. And inside this pool, you have Bamboo, who qualified for... They were definitely in the World Championship last year. I don't know if they got out of group stage. Haven't seen them play on ladder that much. Haven't seen them in any tournament, as far as I'm aware. However, Bamboo came in here and got got 2nd seed. He was actually seed 1 for a long time. And you'll see part of the reason he did that is he got the 2-1 upset over Tang Tang, who is also in this group. I'm sure by this point you've seen where this is going. So on day 1, Tang Tang collected his DQs. He got 2 DQs. Beat this Chinese player I don't recognize 2-0, and then lost 1-2 to Bamboo. So he was 1-1 with the 2 buys everybody got after day 1, with only 1 game left against TB. And by this point, Bamboo, I think, was already guaranteed through. He had 2 wins and the 2 byes, so he was already 4-0, basically guaranteed through. And TB had not played against Bamboo or Tang Tang. He had just played against the other guy and collected his 2 DQs. So, on day 2, TB played Bamboo. He won, so it's 4-1, 3-1, with TB versus Tang Tang deciding the entire bracket. If TB wins, TB and Bamboo are through. If Tang Tang wins, it's Tang Tang and Bamboo through. It went to game 3, and Tang Tang lost. So Tang Tang is out of the World Championship in group stages. He will not be making top 32. And from a competitive point of view, I'm a little sad about this, because I do think Tang Tang is definitely arguably in the top 4 of the world, so it would have been interesting to see him play at the top 4, or in the top 4, just to add that little extra competitive edge to the tournament. However, given his past and his history with cheating, I am very happy that everybody who was caught cheating is now out of the World Championship. And I thought that they deserved harsher bans. I thought they shouldn't have been allowed to play in the World Championship. Tang Tang was, but now he's out, and he's out before making any cash prize, and he's out before like knocking anybody else out. So, you know, the universe has sort of corrected itself. Call it karma. But we will go on to Group 5. And actually, apologies, I'm getting a phone call, so I'm actually going to pause the recording here and rejoin you in a bit. Alrighty, sorry about that. Now let's wrap this up. We have Pool 15. This is the Birdo Burrito pool, and you can see Birdo Burrito going 6-0, 12-3, 2-1, 2-1, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-1. And the second player out of his group is #1203. Some of these names, guys, like, come on. Your name just can't be a string of numbers. I mean, it can, but, like, really? Like, can you imagine if this person makes top 6 and, like, the casters are, like, having to be like, oh, it's #1203 is, 1 game away from the World Championship. Yeah, and then also in his group, you have Spoos, who very nearly made it. I believe he was in a situation where if he beat Birdo in the last game, he would have made it. But unfortunately he did not, so you have Spoos dropping out. And actually, I'm now realizing that this is Transpotting. Their name is Transpotting. They just entered their name as their team name, and then entered their actual name as just their KARDS account number. So, yeah. Apologies, Transpotting. His name was not actually #1203. It is Transpotting, number 1203. So yeah, you have Transpotting qualifying as seed number 2, and no, I'm not just pronouncing that wrong. It is Transpotting. There's no I in there. It is not Trainspotting. It is Transpotting. And you have Group 16, where you have Tiger coming in second, very nearly losing. This was another 4-person group with 2 DQs. And winning the group, actually, going 3-0 against the players who showed up, is Lin. And now I know absolutely nothing about this player. However, they beat Tiger, and Tiger's pretty good. So, yeah, impressive. Going to be interesting to see how they go on. There's no one else in this group I particularly recognize, so it's not seeing Tiger go through, and not the most surprising. And that brings us to the end of the group stages. That brings us to the end of the qualifiers. And that means we now have our top 32 bracket for Saturday. It's in 2 days. And if you're wondering why I haven't been streaming, why I haven't uploaded anything, this is why. I've been practicing basically non-stop working with several different people, trying to get deck lists, testing different deck lists, testing best of fives, testing lineups, what I think other people are going to bring, testing decks versus what they did bring, what they might bring, against several different people, looking down the bracket, trying to predict what, it's like, okay, if I win against this person, and then I win against this person, I'm going to be playing this person, this person, this person, this person, or this person. Of those four, I think it's like these two were most likely. If I do place those two, which decks are they most likely to have? How does that perform against the decks that I'm thinking about bringing? So yeah, basically this is a lot of work. And let us take a look at the top 32. Now there is some spicy pairings, and again, this is based off the groups. So the order of this is entirely based off the groups. You have Seed 1 from Group 1 playing against Seed 2 from Group 16, and then the next one is Seed 2 from Group 1 playing against Seed 1 from Group 2 playing against Seed 2 from Group 15, and it's just down the entire bracket like that. So that and the groups were drawn randomly. So basically what that means is you're going to have certain... the bracket's not going to be fair. And after this, I'll get into my feedback on things I would like to see different in future years. I'm very glad this was the top 32. After the 2020 KARDS World Championship, which was single elimination, I basically just, like... I probably, like, hounded Ollie, to be honest. I don't really remember, but I was one of the big proponents of being like, please make this double elimination next year. Because, my goodness, like, best of 3 single elimination to decide the top 4 of the KARDS World Championship was just, it was bad. So I like this format. It's a way better format than 2019. The 2019 one was single elimination, best of 3s, from top 128 to top 4. Like, it was just one massive bracket. Then 2020 was a Swiss round to get to top 16, and then top 16 was single elimination, best of 3s. The 2021 World Championship was exactly the same as this one. Not quite exactly the same. They didn't have the in-client qualifiers, but the actual top 128 and the top 32 was exactly the same. And it's the best so far. The 2022 World Championship is the best so far. I want to make that clear. I just think there's improvements that they can do for 2023, which I hope they do. But first, let us get into this bracket. So, at the very top, you have Huey versus Tiger. Wow. Like, these are two of the best players out of China. I'm unsure whether, like, to what degree they work together. Like, the Chinese community is not just a monolith where everybody is like a hive mind and works together. Like, there's groups within the Chinese community as there is groups within, like, the Western community, whatever that means. So, I have no idea if these two work together. Generally speaking, from what I've seen, Huey tends to do his own thing. Whereas Tiger tends to go with more of, like, the Tang lineup. And then the next up, we see Petriacre versus Transpotting. And between the two of them, I would lean towards Petriacre. Between Huey and Tiger, I would lean towards Huey. The winner of this one versus the winner of Petriacre Transpotting, I would have to strongly favorite either Huey or Tiger advancing to the quarterfinals, where they will play one of Pilsudski versus Bamboo, and Johnny 99 versus Chisty. Now, honestly, it's hard to say. Like, Chisty and Pilsudski are tournament players with tournament experience. However, both of them are relatively new, and Bamboo and Johnny 99 both had some pretty convincing performances. I think Chisty takes it over Johnny 99. Pilsudski versus Bamboo, I'm not sure. And again, I think either one, I'm still favoriting Huey in my fantasy bracket, so I'm saying Huey makes semifinals. Then you have Corn Guy versus Vadim. My money's on Corn Guy. He's been playing very well lately. Killswitch versus Krieger. My money's on Killswitch. Kalen BZ versus Head. My money's on Head. That man's kind of been on fire recently, although Kalen is definitely not to be trifled with. Zanyun versus Dion. Um, I mean, Dion just always finds a way, and it's weird. I want to say Dion. Head versus Dion. I I'm gonna go with Head. I think Head is kind of a no nonsense player, and Dion is all the nonsense player. And when those two meet, if it's a good player, I think Head is just gonna be slightly favored. So in this fantasy bracket, you have Head going up to the quarterfinals. Corn Guy versus Kill Switch. That's a tough one. I think they're very evenly matched. Maybe give a slight edge to Kill Switch. So yeah, let's say Kill Switch versus Head. In this fantasy bracket of mine, probably Kill Switch. Again, I think these are very evenly matched. I think it can go either way. And again, I have to give the favor to Huey Huey in the winner's semifinal. I honestly, maybe this will insult people, so apologies if it does. Honestly, I think that this top half of the bracket is much, like, easier is kind of the wrong way to put it, because you can lose any game to any player. It doesn't matter how well recognizable their name is. But, like, just in general, I think it's significantly less stacked. I think if you were to just like, go through these top 32 and take, like, be like, okay, on paper, these are, like, the 6 best players, I'm pretty sure, like, 5 of them are in the bottom half of the bracket. So, yeah, I think this is Huey Huey's bracket to lose, but again, that's 4 games to get into, like, 4 best of 5 sets. The format for this is you bring 4 decks, 1 gets banned, best of 5. So nobody is, like, likely to win 4 consecutive best of 5s. That's just, like, that's just not a reality. Anybody could win this. However, in my opinion, again, not knowing what deck lists are, deck lists affect this a lot. Like, for all we know, Tiger brings just, like, an absolutely anti-Huey Huey lineup and destroys him in round 1. But just in terms of experience, what I've seen of their playing level, how they play under pressure, in, like, high stress scenarios, high importance situations, I have to give it to Huey Huey making top 4 winner side. Yeah, I think, I mean, man deserves it. It absolutely crushes OCC. But again, this is a fantasy bracket, anything can happen. Now let us get to this bottom half of the bracket. Starting off, you have Vinny versus Kolbasnik, which is very much a Tiger versus Huey Huey-esque matchup. Both very good players, unfortunately having to play each other in the first round. My money is on Vinny, to be completely honest. We actually saw them match up in the KARDS, in my King's Cup tournament, which I believe we saw Vinny taking 3rd place over Kolbasnik in the most convincing game of the series, if I remember correctly. I think it was like a 5-1. It was pretty convincing. So yeah, my money's on Vinny. Leo versus Rayson. I know who Leo is, and he went ham in group stage. I'm not very familiar with who Rayson is, so I'm gonna say Leo. Vinny versus Leo. I'm gonna say Vinny just because of experience. But I think that matchup's pretty close to 50-50. If Leo brings good decks. Leo just sort of has. He seems like he knows what he's doing, so as long as he doesn't, like, implode. Something that's definitely worth to keep in mind is the meta is going to switch. Brit Italy Air in general has received some nerfs. The Black Watch has received some buffs. That card seems like it could shake things up, maybe. That card seems pretty good. And people are going to be wondering, is Brit Italy Air still the best Air? Is it Brit US Air? Is it Brit Japan Air? Is Air even worth bringing at all? How many people are going to be bringing Air? Is it worth countering Air? Or is it weak enough now that you don't need to counter it? Or is it weak enough now that it's easy to counter it? However, if it's too weak, maybe people aren't going to bring it. the meta is much more unclear than it was going into group stage. So a lot of these players who take other decks, like take meta decks and perform well with them, might suffer if they don't have a group of players to practice with, and if they don't have the best deck building skills. So yeah, I'm leaning towards saying Vinny over Leo. And then we get to the big whammy, and I'm not just saying that because I'm there. You have CU Collector versus Noen, which is already, like, one of the best players in the world versus the 2 times top 4 finalist. That's already, I think, probably, like, the most, not unfair because it's random, but, like, the most stacked set, I think, so far in the tournament by far. And the winner of that will play the winner of me versus CCMS in the first round. Which means the KARDS 2020 World Champion is playing the KARDS 2021 World Champion in the first round. Yeah. Yeah, and Gearbot, the 2019 World Championship, he like has been gone into the game for a very long time. So this is literally the 2 world champions of KARDS face it out in the first round. I am the best performing tournament player for the past 2 years across all tournaments. CCMS won the World Championship in 2020, and then qualified for the World Championship in 2021 and couldn't play because he couldn't make it. Wow. This is stacked. And the winner goes on to play Noen versus CU Collector. Noen and me are the 2 most frequent and like highest placing tournament players in this entire calendar year, and CU Collector and CCMS are partners who have made top 4 together 2 consecutive years by working together. And the 4 of us are in this group where one of us is going to have to go 0-2. I guess now is a good time to mention how the loser bracket works. So you get moved around the bracket. So, for example, if we look up here, Q is the game between the winner of Huey Tiger versus Petriaco Transpotting. Q is down here at the very bottom. Loser of Q. However, if you look at the next one, R, Pilsudski, Bamboo, Johnny 99, Chisty, R is going to be, sorry, not R, Y. If you look at Y, so Huey beats Tiger, or Huey beats Petriaker, moves on, Petriaker goes down to Q, and then Huey loses in Y, let's say. Y is, where is Y? Loser of Y. It's over here. It's on the other side of the bracket. So every time you go up, you switch halves of the bracket. So basically, the point of that is to avoid having Huey play against Tiger, win, and then immediately Huey loses and then plays against Tiger again. The point is that it's trying to make you not have to play against the same person twice immediately. So every time you go up on the winner's bracket, if you lose, you're going to switch halves on the loser's bracket, if that makes sense. However, in the first round, you are going to be matched against the loser with the bracket immediately adjacent to you. So the winner of A plays the winner of B. Makes sense. So if Huey wins here, Petriaker wins here, it will be Huey versus Petriaker with Tiger and Transpotting losing. However, if you go down to loser's bracket, loser of A plays loser of B, which means you will have Tiger versus Transpotting. Which is fine, because they haven't played against each other previously. It doesn't... It makes sense. It's perfectly fine. This is not like a flaw with the system. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to explain how the system works. What that means is this pairing of Noen 5 versus CU Collector and myself versus CCMS, the losers will play each other. Which means one of CU Collector, CCMS, JKing7, and Noen 5, one of those 4 players will be out going 0-2. Guaranteed. And 3 of those 4 players will be in the loser's bracket before quarterfinals. That's insane. Like, that is so ridiculously unlucky for all of us. It's unlucky for, like, just the audience. Like, if I was in the audience, I would be annoyed that these games are going to be off stream. And, like, it means that some of the best players in the tournament are going to be knocked out very early on off stream. Because they were just all clumped together early in the bracket. Like, if these 4 players were spread out, we could very easily see a top 4 winner side of No 5, CU Collector, CCMS, King 7. That could very easily happen. But no, it's all happening in top 32, right down at the bottom. But enough about that, let's move on. You have 8964, no idea who this guy is, played against Darkness round 1. Have to give it to Darkness. TB versus Citrus. TB's been performing well. Citrus did really well in his group, but again, I have no idea who Citrus is, so I'm just going to have to give it to TB, just based on I know who they are. Another big whammy of a matchup is Cappuccino, who won the... Well, he won the King's Cup tournament that I hosted, and then immediately won the OCC. Was that the September OCC, I believe? Yeah, September OCC. So, big wins. Birdo Burrito, I think, is one of the best players in the game. He's won 2 OCCs. He's won an Open. He's won, like, he came second in the draft tournament they hosted. Well, he was, like, basically a rando in the community. And then decided, I want to play things competitively. I have a very small collection. I'll join, like, a tiny little community tournament. Won that. This guy just wins. So, between the 2 of them, my money is on Birdo, but again, this is a close one. Like, Cappuccino is a good player. However, we have seen Cappuccino self-destruct sometimes. And hopefully it doesn't happen to him this time. Like, I think he's definitely been performing better recently. However, slight competitive edge to Birdo, maybe? Again... Wow, that's an unfortunate pairing. The winner there will play the winner against Lin versus Iggy Ouch. So I guess I'll finish my fantasy bracket for this half. So I said Vinny, probably, going on to the quarterfinals on this side. Myself versus CCMS. Again, like, it's myself. It's hard to be like, well, I'm bad at the game. I don't think I'm going to win. But I do genuinely think I'm going to beat CCMS for several reasons. Main reason being I've just been playing the game more regularly. I have more tournament experience. Yeah, but again, anything's possible. Who the hell knows what he's going to bring? I am, like, genuinely scared. Like, he's going to frickin' bring, like, some OTK deck. He's going to bring Siberian Transfer OTK and destroy me or something. I don't know. Anything can happen. I think if he's going to beat me, it's going to be on deck lists. It will just be because my deck lists are just not great into his, and there's not a whole lot I can do. I mean, I'm saying that that's the most likely scenario. It's possible I just self-destruct, but, I mean, I doubt it. CU Collector versus Noen. Again, I think of the pairing of CU Collector and CCMS, I think CCMS is way far stronger, so I think Noen's going to take it over CU Collector. So, myself versus Noen in the next round. Again, I think it's going to be me. But, like, again, that's almost basically just a 50-50 matchup. Like, I just have slightly better tournament performance ratings overall than No 5. But he's a strong player. I think it being 4 decks best of 5 is an advantage to me. Because No 5, I think, plays a handful of decks really, really, really well. So the more games there are, and the more decks he is forced to bring, and I can ban, like, whatever his most comfortable deck is, and the meta shifting, so you can't bring Brittly Air, which has been a staple of his. Well, I mean, he can, but it will be nerfed. Yeah, I think I'd have to give it to me. So then you have myself going up against Vinny, in the quarterfinals. I mean, yeah, I think I would be favored there against Vinny. Again, not an easy matchup. Like, look at how stacked this is, right? Like, whoever comes out of No and 5 CU Collector CCMS J King 7 is probably going to have to play against Vinny at the end of it. And if not Vinny, then Kolbastik. And if not Kolbastik, then Leo. Like there's people on this side who, like, essentially can just, like, get to semifinals playing randos. This, just, like, quarter of the bracket is absolute slaughter. And then on the other side of the bracket, I mean, I think Darkness TB move forward. I think Darkness is favored against TB. Again, just going off of experience. On the other side, Birdo over Cappuccino, very, very close. I have literally no knowledge to go on about Lin versus Ikioch. I have not the faintest, but I think Birdo's going to beat whoever goes through. Like, I think the winner of Birdo versus Cappuccino will be whoever goes through here. And I think giving Birdo the edge, so I think Birdo is going to go through here, which means we're going to have Darkness versus Birdo in the quarterfinals, which sucks. And I think I had to give slight edge to Birdo just because he's been playing way more cards this year. Darkness has been very busy with work, has not played as much cards since the last World Championship. So I don't think he's quite as confident or as strong of a player as he was a year ago. Whereas Birdo has been playing a lot. So I'd say Birdo moves forward, which again means that whoever comes out of this No One CU Collector CCMS J King 7 situation, if they get past Vinny, Kolbastik, Leo, they're then going to almost certainly have to play Darkness or Birdo in the top 4. Like, it is mind-blowing how stacked this bracket is. But yeah, myself versus Birdo in a winner's top 4. That's hard. I mean, if you look at our track record against each other, it's really strange. I think the first time we met in tournament, Birdo won 3-0 in the finals of an OCC, like the February OCC. I lost on Brit Air 3 consecutive times, which was hilarious. And then I think the next time we met was in an open top 16 off stream. I won 3-1, I think. And then I think we met again in like a third place match, or maybe a finals again. And I think I won 3-1 or 3-2. And then our most recent meeting was in the first round of an OCC where he won 2-0. So it seems if he wins, he's going to destroy me. But like, if I could take a game, I might take the series. I mean, that's not a huge sample size. It's not a huge thing to go off of. Again, I think it's another one of these 50-50s. I'd give slight edge to myself just because I've been in this spot before. Like, I think, yeah, like, I just have more experience, and I think it's when you get to these, like, equal playing strength, probably, like, equal deck strength, situations, it really comes down to, like, how nervous a person is, or, like, how well a person is able to deal with their nerves. Because at this point, we're going to be playing on stream. Winner gets a minimum of $1,000. Like, this would be by far the single biggest match Birdo has played. It would not be the biggest match I have played. So I have that going for me. So according to my fantasy bracket, it will be me versus Huey Huey. Well, not versus Huey Huey, because they'll probably do the top 4 thing again, where top 4 gets reset. Doesn't matter if he made it in on winners or losers, random draws. But me and Huey Huey on winner's side, that would be quite the story. Just the two OCC kings fighting it out. On the loser side, honestly, I forget who I said. I think I said Kill Switch over here. So Kill Switch down in this situation, Birdo over here. I think Birdo makes it to Grand Finals. Kill Switch, I mean, he's gonna have to play against Darkness, probably. I'm not gonna go through and figure out everybody, but I think it's gonna be like Darkness, or maybe if no one makes the losers run of his life. Although, according to my prediction, I guess no one would be on the other half of the bracket. Yeah, I mean, top 4, like fantasy top 4. Myself, Huey, Birdo, and Darkness. I would say no, put no one in there, but it's just the fact that, like, if he drops against me, it's gonna be so early on. It's really difficult to just, like, win 8 consecutive best of 5s. It's possible, but it's really difficult. So, yeah, there you have my fantasy bracket. We will see how it plays out. We're playing to top 6 on Saturday, which means you will have 4 players up here. You will have winner of Y, winner of Z, winner of AA, winner of AB, and then you will have 1 player sitting in each loser's quarterfinals down here. You will have the winner of BF and the winner of BG sitting here, waiting to play the loser of ACAD. If that makes sense. If this does not make sense, feel free to either just go back and listen to what I said again, probably slow it down, I know I talk very fast, or the link to this page will be in the description. You can look through it yourself at your own pace. And yeah, now let us do a little bit of discussion. I'm not going to get into my decks because, again, deck submission is an hour before the tournament. I don't want to, like, spoil my lineup. I don't want to do anything like that. I mean, I can tell you now, I'm not certain on my lineup. I've not submitted anything. I'm not ready to submit anything. I need more testing. So, thoughts on the tournament, format, or what changes I would like to see. I've been saying this for a while now. I think KARDS needs some sort of player power ranking, so that you can draw seeding up for unseeded tournaments. And what I mean by this is, I don't know exactly how it would work, but you get some formula that factors in tournament placements, like recent tournament placements, as well as all tournament placements, recent, like, ladder positions, and, like, if you want to get super complicated with it, like the power rankings of the opponents that they've played against, to just basically come up with a score. And then you compare the score to other players. You don't need everybody, because it would be really complicated to do everybody, but you'd get, like, maybe 32 or 16, like the top 32 or the top 16, something like that. So you just get a list of players with pre-seeded. So, for example, for this year, you might have, like, me, Tang, and Noen at the top. Birdo is probably in, like, top 5. Darkness would be coming in lower because he hasn't played a lot of tournaments this year. Cappuccino is probably in top 10. Killer Switch might be in top 10. So it's like, you get a list of players based on relatively how well they have been performing recently. And for any event like this, or any event, you can then seed the players based on this. Now, obviously, you don't need this for ladder, or you don't need this for OCC, because you can go off of ladder positions. You don't need this for opens, because you can go off of how they ranked in open qualifiers, although that is somewhat arbitrary. But for Worlds, it just hurts so much when they do drawing for groups, and it's like, well, Birdo didn't pre-qualify, so there is a chance that Birdo gets put into the same group as myself and Tang. That was a possibility. It was possible that we had a group with myself, Birdo, and Tang. That should not be a possibility. That just sucks. And again, because of these randomly drawn groups, we end up with a essentially randomly drawn top 32 bracket, which leads to these CCMS J-King 7, Noen 5, CU Collector situations. Yeah, if you had pre-seeded players, you'd be like, here's the top 32, here is their relative score, so we are going to, like, put the pre-seeded players down the row in order of their pre-seeds, so that they don't face each other too early. And what that would do is it increases the competitiveness of the event. It increases the competitive level of the tournaments of the games that are seen on stream. Because I mean, I think I speak for everybody. Maybe I don't, but I think I speak for most people when I say I don't really like watching a rando get to stream, like get onto a stream. Like if let me rephrase this. If you like are somebody nobody's seen before and you get top 6 and they show your game in OCC on stream, that is cool. Like I'm all for an underdog story. I'm all for like a new faces in the scene. But what I mean is like if you're like Joe Schmo 1245, you've never played a tournament before in your life, and you've made it to like top 4 winner's side by playing against Joe Schmo 649, and the like. It's like I don't really want to see them on stream. They're not gonna play well. They're not gonna have good decks, and they're going to be worse than players who are like now having to fight it out in the losers bracket because it's like the rank 1 player and had to play against the rank 2 player in the second round. Yeah, so pre-seeding would solve so many problems, and just I think generally improve the nature of the tournament. I think, yeah, like I don't. Underdog stories are fine if the underdog like earned their way there by slaying like dragons. Like so, for example, if Joe Schmo made it to top 4 by beating myself and Noan and Vinny, of course show him on stream. That guy's insane. Let's see what he's doing. Let's see how he's done it. But if Joe Schmo gets there by beating other Joe Schmoes, that's a problem with this event. Like, I don't know. It always bothers me when there's somebody who, like, very clearly is not at the same level as the people they're playing against. And if you go into the bracket, you can see that they just played against complete randos to get there. And it's like, well, this would have been nice if this was pre-seeded. So that's one complaint. I think the double elimination, top 32, I'm fine with that. I think streaming more games would be nice. I understand that it's not necessarily possible. But, like, again, these things don't need to be a 2-day event. Like, I don't know. You can do a 3-day event. Start on Friday. Or you can do, like, I guess people work on Friday, when you're going across all time zones. But, like, you can do a 2-weekend event. Like, the top 4 isn't for a month. It's not like you have other things immediately coming up, but yeah, I mean, I guess the tournament grind never stops. The following weekend will be OCC qualifiers. The next weekend will be OCC top 8. Then the following weekend will be the Open. But yeah, I mean, I think just giving more time, showing off more games. Maybe what you could do is have a stream on the Saturday where basically they just go to certain sets and be like, okay, guys, don't start immediately. We're going to show your set on stream, set up the observer mode, and then be like, okay, we're now going to watch this thing. And then you have the stream running parallel to keep people updated on how the bracket's looking. Something like that, I think, would be very interesting just from a viewership side of things. Yeah, and top 4, I really, really hope they change it from last year. Last year was a double elimination bracket that did not need a bracket reset in the grand finals, which didn't make a ton of sense. So if you think back to last year, I lost to Darkness in the first round, like the semifinals. Bison lost to Vibator in the semifinals. We both dropped to the losers bracket, where I beat Bison, so I moved to the losers finals. Darkness beat Viabator, so Darkness went to the grand finals, going 2-0. I am now 1-1. Viabator is 1-1. I beat Viabator. I am now 2-1. Darkness is 2-0. We play against each other. I beat Darkness, so I'm now 3-1. Darkness is 2-1. However, we've each lost once. You could argue that I've won more games, Like, I've beaten everybody in the tournament, but we're 1-1 against each other. We each only have one loss. According to traditional double elimination brackets, we should have played another set. However, we didn't play another set. Time constraints was the main reason. Like, the set would have been like another 2 hours, and like, it was already late. People were working overtime. People wanted to go. So I understand the time constraints and why they didn't do it, but just from a purely competitive point of view, I would have liked to see a true double elimination in there. Also, I think it's a little sad that they didn't have the people who got in from winner's side having a competitive advantage. Now, the reason they didn't do this, well, a possible reason they didn't do this was because Viabator was the only one on winner's side, because the other player on winner's side was CU Collector, and they couldn't come. So then they took 3 players from loser's side, and there wouldn't be really a way to give Viabator individually an advantage. And then it would be very arbitrary to choose between giving me and Darkness an advantage. And there wouldn't be a way to only give Bison a disadvantage. However, assuming everything goes well this time, hopefully it all works out so that the people who qualify from winner's side do get some sort of advantage. Just considering that they haven't lost a game in top 32, that should be worth something. Like, it doesn't need to be like an entire set advantage. Like, you don't need to put them on a winner's side bracket and take the people on top who qualified from the bottom on the loser side of the bracket, because it is sad if you go to top 4 and only get to play 1 set. I think everyone deserves to do 2 sets. However, I think it should be seeded where you have somebody who from top, like somebody from winner's side play against somebody from loser's side, and vice versa. Like, not vice versa, like in each side of the top 4 you have a winner's side playing a loser's side, and make it like a best of 5 with the loser's side getting like a game, or the winner's side getting a game advantage. So like, for example, the winner's side, like, they do the bans, they each have 3 decks, best of 5, and right off the bat the winner gets to pick a deck that has 1. So it's as if they start the set 1-0 to signify that they have a advantage. Something like that I think would be nice. Again, also think a best of 7 would be neat. Like, bring 5 decks, ban 1. I understand why I definitely understand why they're not doing it for top 32. This is already a huge event that's going to take a long time. However, for top 4, again, it can go over multiple days. It does not need to be a 2-day thing. So yeah, I just think the more games you can have, the more sets you can have, the less RNG will have an effect, and the more skill will sort of like even out results. Which, as a competitive player, is what I want. And last but not least, again, I think I've mentioned this before, maybe not on YouTube, but definitely on stream and on Discord. I think it's very sad and a step backwards that they're not doing top 4 in Iceland. They did top 4 in Iceland in 2019 and 2021. They couldn't in 2020 because of COVID. And they're not doing it this year, and the reason is, in 2021, they said, we're doing it in Iceland. You have to be able to come to Iceland if you qualify. And there was 3 Chinese players who qualified, and all 3 of them could not get visas to come to Iceland because of their own country's travel restrictions and whatnot. So all 3 were like kicked out of the tournament, and they took the next 3 qualifying players who could travel. And that sucked. Like, that sucked. It's what gave me my spot in the top 4, but I still think that sucks for the other players. Now, I know that there was plans to host their own tournament, I don't know, online or in person in China, later in the future to still give them something because they are finalists, even if they couldn't travel to the event. So basically the point was that they didn't want that to happen again. So they said, we're not doing it in person at all. It's not in Iceland. You don't need to come to Iceland. However, that's the thing. You don't need to come to Iceland. If you can do it in person, and you can do it remotely, and they're flying the casters to Iceland, like the casters will all be in person, in studio, in Iceland. Why can't you have some of the players, like all of the players who can make it, travel to Iceland, and if there's any player who can't make it, they can join in remotely. Like, I don't understand. I mean, I guess the argument could be that the player joining remotely would have an unfair advantage because it would be easier for them to cheat, like get a friend to help them, since they're not playing in person. It's harder to, like, make sure they're playing fairly, so they could get an unfair advantage. However, on the flip side is they aren't getting a paid vacation to Iceland, so you know. Yeah, I think it's a strange and a sad step backwards to not be hosting it in Iceland. I mean, again, there's still time to change that. You never know. It's not necessarily hard set in stone. And we'll see. And yeah, I think that's it for me. This is already an hour and a half long video. Just my thoughts on the World Championship, what to expect, and I will probably be recording my games in Top 32 and uploading them here, regardless of the situation. Statistically speaking, I'm not going to make top 4 again. I have accepted that. It's a 1 in 8. And that number is then affected by skill, deck lists, but that could narrow that number down a lot in my favor. However, then it also has to do with what the bracket looks like, which is pushing that number all the way back to a 1 in 8. So, yeah. Win or lose, you will see my games. I've made top 16 in 2019, 2020, and I won 2021. So my goal is top 16. If I can make it there, I'm happy. Obviously, I would love to make top 4 again, and I will try my best. But, yeah. If not, I will be excited to see 4 new finalists. I'll be excited to see a new world champion crowned. Yeah. I'm just incredibly excited and looking forward to the future. And let me know how you performed, if you played, who you're rooting for, what your fantasy bracket looks like. In the comments, join my Discord if you want to ask me questions more directly, or just keep up to date, or chat with other people. Yeah, so the next video will probably be my top 32 games. I will try to get them out on Saturday. If I'm in the top 6, I will try to get them out on Saturday, so I can tell you that I'm in the top 6, so you can watch the stream. But regardless, you should watch the stream, whether I'm in it or not, which will be on Sunday, which will be the top 6. So, yeah, until then, I'll catch you later, and next week, hopefully, we will be back to the regular schedule of ranked games, Throwback Thursdays, and I will be looking to start up my Analyzing Viewer Games series. So, yeah, for like the 3rd time, goodbye, thank you for watching, I'll catch you next time.